Welcome again to American Christian or Christian American. Today, as I said last episode, we're going to talk about buck breaking, and it is not a pleasant subject. It is not for immature ears. It is something, though, that should be talked about because it's part of history, and yet it's not. Maybe the violence part of it is part of history, maybe not, but it is part of history, and really, in some form or another, it's still taking place, just not like it was what we're going to talk about today. At least not that openly about it. It could still happen, um, but it's a tough subject. So we're going to talk about this. We're going to go over some documents, and then we'll finish up talking about it face to face again. Sensitive issues today. A lot of this is sensitive that we've been talking about, but um, this is really tough. If you read up here, 5 horrifying ways enslaved men were sexually exploited and abused by their white masters. Time and time again, horrifying experiences of enslaved Africans working on plantations in Americas and other parts of the world were told over and over again. So it talks about being up here about people being enslaved and women being used as sex toys and stuff like that. But what it also says is that men, the sexual exploitation of men was not talked about as much. So this article focuses more on men, what they had to go through. So shockingly, the raping of enslaved men was as prevalent as raping enslaved women. However, the issue of enslaved men as rape victims has been mainly undiscovered due to the fact that generally shy to voice or that they had been raped by male merchants or their owners. If you go down here, it says too, it was hard to believe the people who did the assault to these men were married or had many girlfriends, so they couldn't be doing that. There was no physical evidence. They didn't get pregnant, of course, being men, and they didn't show any injury. So it just people didn't believe it. Many enslaved men were raped on ships and secret sex farms, plantations for homosexual slave owners, which were very popular in the Caribbean, especially. They were also killed if they rebelled. The rape of enslaved men was an open secret for several years during the slave trade days. Enslaved men were also forced to have sex with their masters' wives when their masters were away. Buck breaking. This is a form of sexual abuse that was very popular in the Caribbean and involved white supremacists and slave owners as well as merchants raping male slaves in front of public to embarrass him and make him feel like less of a man. Buckbreaking became very popular when the slave rebellion had increased. Enslaved men were first stripped naked, flogged in front of the crowd, after which they were raped by white men and to serve as a warning to other slaves. On several occasions, enslaved men with families were forced to have sex with each other in front of their families or were raped in front of their sons. Many enslaved men who had gone through this process of buckbreaking killed themselves afterwards or run away and never returned. For the white supremacists, buckbreaking either on ships or plantation was a way to utterly embarrass the men and show dominance. So this is, they humiliated these men. And it's amazing to me that the plantation owner was willing to do this in front of everybody else. I think that would be embarrassing to them. But then again, these men didn't seem to have any conscience. This is what we talked about in the last episode when we talked about Mr. Marshall, where he stood up and said, that most white people don't care about black people, and then they would do them harm. And he was attacked verbally by Republicans lawmakers who wanted him to resign. They referred to it as buck breeding. It's the same kind of thing. It may not be rape that way, but it's still the idea of breaking a prominent black male in order to keep fear in the other people. Well, this is kind of where it comes from. But this is what we're talking about here. Now, there was also breeding farms. During the rise of the abolitionists who were fighting for the end of slavery, the slave trade drastically reduced. Slave ships were stopped, slaves were helped to escape, and many slaves gained a new form of confidence to rebel, resist, or escape. This placed a huge toll on the slave trade, and plantation owners did not have enough labor to meet the market demands for their produce. Then came out with breeding farms that exploited the sexuality of men. At the breeding farms, healthy and strong enslaved men were forced to have sex with women to get them pregnant. The white slave masters did not care if these women were the mothers, daughters, or relatives of the men, and the men were made to have sex with at least 6 women a day to increase the possibility of the number of women who got pregnant. Breeding farms became a lucrative business, especially in South America, and created this term here, which literally explained a male having sex with his mother. Many enslaved men who were the heads of breeding farms died of sexual exhaustion. Enslaved men were castrated or sexually mutilated as a form of punishment. Some punishments were meted out to an enslaved man when he was caught in bed with his master's wife or the daughter, or said to be married or having an affair with an enslaved woman, who was the sexual interest of a merchant or a slave master. These acts were also done to take away any form of pride in a enslaved man. Enslaved men who were often leaders of groups of slaves or plantations or a rebel group were castrated and called women to show the white man's dominance. Entertaining sex. Many white supremacists, wealthy merchants, and aristocrats often used enslaved men as a form of sexual entertainment. Enslaved men were often made to line up naked for their sexual organs to be scrutinized, laughed, and at the disgust, and discussed. They were also made to dance naked. In extreme cases, enslaved men were made to forcefully have sex with enslaved virgin to entertain the white viewer. Hello, we're back again, face to face. This is stuff that's difficult. I mean, I find it horrific and unconscionable. How could people survive such horrific treatment? How could people go through this and what they were treated like? This is what sinful people do. This is what people who follow the devil do. This is not decent, moral people. These are evil people. Now, when I say evil people, I have to acknowledge that I don't mean that they cannot be redeemed, because any one of these people could turn to God and be remorseful for what they did, and God would forgive them. I don't know that any of them did. But if a person continues to follow along with this horrific, hateful, disgusting treatment of other people, they're not with God. Because this is not God. This is not God at all. God loves us. He is love. We can't be part of God if we pursue hatred and evil things. It's bad enough that we know that many women were raped and treated like this. Now we have men too. Now, I'm not saying men is worse than if it's men. I'm saying it's just more people. This is how they took away the pride of people. Buck breeding. Now it describes it in the Caribbean and South America, and a lot of this stuff I have no doubt took place in America as well. Because people treated black people from Africa just absolutely horrific. This is not Christian people. I believe in my heart that there were Christian white people in the times, and actually people who helped with the Underground Railroad and other things, people who were decent. But so many were not. Why is it that the South of the United States is called the Bible Belt when all they seem to do is hit people below the belt? They treat people horribly. Where in the Word of God does it say any of this? It doesn't. This is horrific. These men were mutilated, they were assaulted, and then to put them into breeding farms and to force them to have sexual relations with their mothers, their sisters. Unimaginable. Can you imagine the psychological damage that did to people? This is generational stuff. This is stuff that passes down from generation to generation. That habits and things like that, because people were conditioned and they were actually traumatized and mentally scarred. Some have overcome it. But these things were passed down, maybe not the actual event to the next generation, but the way a person felt about themselves because of it. The way a person felt powerless and without hope. That's was passed on. The way people give up, that was passed on. And not only that, but they continue to deal with racism and all these horrific things. It's unconscionable. When I was younger, I was always taught by my mother not that how people were treated badly, and I was never taught to be racist or things, although I know that I was racist in some sense because I lived in a society of racism. Some things that I didn't choose to hurt anybody or anything, but because of the society I live in, I was mentally conditioned in some ways. Thankful I had a mother who taught me differently, so at least my mindset was different. But the more I learn, the more I see, which I know I only know a fraction, the more disgusted I become with all these things, and the more I know that God is the only answer for all of us. The more I know that people need each other. People need to embrace each other. This is not godliness. White Christian nationalism is not godliness. Republicans, for the most part, do not support God. They support an idea of God, their own idea. Evangelicals are not part of this system. They support the Klan and every other form, MAGA. They support a nationalist movement that is based on power and control, and it's focused on racism, that white people are superior. I don't want to be part of this. And if this country became all white, I'd have to pack my bags and leave. I couldn't be here. I couldn't be here with that kind of attitudes, like with those feelings. And I couldn't be here with just not having other people to make this world more diverse. What will you do? What will you do? If you're just learning about some of this stuff, what will you do? Can you at least, when somebody says something racist to you, tell them you don't appreciate that? Tell them that, I'm sorry, I don't think that way. Would you please keep that to yourself? Can you do at least that? Can you stand up against it just to some degree? It's a start. And even if you can't go to a march or protest, which would be great, can you at least let people know that you don't appreciate it, that you don't like it, and that you don't believe it? Or will you just remain silent? I can't. I cannot remain silent. And I won't. Till the next time on American Christian or Christian American.